Hello and welcome to the video companion for the Talking Time Let's Play of Final Fantasy XIV. I'm McDull, and today we're veering pretty well off course from the current goings-on in Carthus to tackle the level 38 dungeon, Cutter's Cry. Cutter's Cry is a segmented labyrinth of sand pits, giant ant dens, oases, filled to the brim with all kinds of nasties, and it culminates in a boss fight that will teach the player mechanics that will be applicable for a particular enemy type that will be appearing for all throughout the rest of the game. There isn't a lot to be said for the trash or bosses throughout, so instead I'll be using this time to talk about Monk, since this is the first time we're getting a look at it in action. Monk, as you are no doubt aware, is a melee DPS job consisting largely of dancing around the opponent, raining down lightning-quick blows. Nearly every attack in the Monk's arsenal has some kind of positional element. Personally, I like to group the positionals on one specific hotbar so that I know that when I'm pressing one or both triggers, I know where on the enemy's targeting ring I should be standing. In the example you're seeing on screen, I'm pressing R2 for the attacks that are rear positional and pressing R2 to L2 for flank positional attacks. For AoE situations, I'm just pressing L2. Furthermore, I have the attacks set up such that Raptor form attacks like Boot Shine and Arm of the Destroyer are on the circle button. Likewise with Curl form attacks, Twin Snakes and True Strike are set to the X button, and similarly, Opal form attacks are set to the square button. So when I'm proceeding through the rotation of my attacks, my GCD attacks are always following a circle X square rotation, no matter which triggers I'm pulling. Every time you rotate through the full Raptor, Curl, Opo, you get a stack of Greased Lightning, which increases the speed of your GCD. Monks, at the current endgame, can get the 4 stacks of Greased Lightning. Once we hit level 40 during this run, we unlock the 3rd stack of Greased Lightning. The big thing about Monk is that these Greased Lightning stacks are your bread and butter. Several classes in this game, such as Ninja, Black Mage, and Monk, have similar indefinite buffs that require some kind of maintenance that depends on the player's precise timing for actions to maintain. And crushing these indefinite buffs will feel very terrible and punishing, but keeping them going will feel very good and make you feel like an absolute badass for using the skills in such a way as to clutch out a continued Greased Lightning buff. And I even get a good example of this in this recording session. For a quick overview of the attacks unlocked thus far, I'll go over them by positional grouping. For the rear positionals, we have Boot Shine, which automatically crits if hitting from the rear, True Strike, which has no additional effect, and Demolish, which applies a damage over time effect. When fighting a single enemy, such as a boss, you'll want to reapply Demolish every 3rd loop. For flank positionals, we have only 2 right now. Twin Snakes, which applies a damage up effect to you, and Snap Punch, which has no additional effect. At level 50, you get access to Dragon Kick, which applies a buff that basically doubles the damage from the next Boot Shine you use. What I've been getting at, mostly, is that you want to make sure you're nailing those positionals, because an auto-critting doubled Boot Shine while under Twin Snakes is a really powerful thing. For AoE, all these attacks hit in a circle around the player, and while the 2 we have currently, Arm of the Destroyer and Rockbreaker, have no additional effects outside of maintaining the Greased Lightning loop, at level 45, Monks get 4-Point Fury, an attack introduced in Shadowbringers that hits a circle around the Monk once again, but also extends an existing Twin Snakes buff by 10 seconds, up to a maximum of 15. So you need to apply a manual Twin Snakes buff, but every Greased Lightning loop after that, you can just run Arm of the Destroyer, 4-Point Fury, Rockbreaker until there are 2 enemies left, at which point you want to switch back to single target attacks. Each of the classes with indefinite buffs, like I mentioned before, has an attack in their AoE rotation that serves a similar function to 4-Point Fury to maintain that personal buff. Monk has several stances that are useful in varying situations. Fists of Earth, which reduces damage by 10%, which you will primarily be using in solo situations. Fists of Wind, which increase movement speed, and at later levels grants access to that 4th Greased Lightning stack. And Fists of Fire, which increases damage by 5%, increasing to 10% at later levels. I'm not an expert in Monk, but depending on your situation, you may wish to take the additional damage in Fists of Fire or the additional attack speed in Fists of Wind, depending on how your stats play out. But for most situations, you'll want to use Fists of Fire while leveling up to the level cap. but when you get access to the 4th Grease Lightning stack, you'll want to start out pulls and Fists of Fire, then switch over to Wind before you hit that Oppo Oppo attack to maximize the damage you're outputting prior to getting the 4th stack. For other off-global skills, there's only one so far that is unique to Monk. Shoulder Tackle, which cools down every 30 seconds and is a gap closer. That is to say, your character will rush down the target, putting them in melee range. This is handy if you need to get away from your target and then return to them when it's safe. For roll actions, melee DPS has a total of 6. Second Wind, which is a light healing skill that cools in 2 minutes. Leg Sweep, a stun that cools in 40 seconds. Bloodbath, which is up in 90 seconds and will return a portion of the damage you deal back to you as health for 20 seconds. Faint, which reduces the target's physical damage by 10% and cools in 90 seconds. This is good for certain tank busters. Arm's Length, which is shared with tanks and prevents most but not all knockback effects, and any enemy that hits you while it's up will take a slow effect. Finally, at level 50, melee DPS get access to True North, a 45-second cooldown that removes all positional requirements from your attacks for 10 seconds, and also carries a mechanic that is new for Shadowbringers, a multi-charge. Certain skills in this game will store multiple cooldowns worth of uses, and the icon on your hotbar will indicate how many charges in the skill you have stocked. At this point, there are 2 other skills I haven't touched that you get up to level 50, so I might as well cover them now. Don't worry, I'll put them up in the thread when they actually get unlocked. First, at level 42 is Mantra. It's a 90-second cooldown that lasts for 15 seconds and buffs the healing skills for yourself and all your nearby allies by 10%. This is really good for recovering from raid-wide attacks. Just make sure you're standing near your healers when you use it. Level 50, in addition to the aforementioned Dragon Kick, you get Perfect Balance. This is a 2-minute cooldown that lasts for 10 seconds and essentially lets you freestyle your GCD attacks. It completely removes the requirements to follow the Raptor, Curl, Oppo Oppo progression for the duration. With 10 seconds, this ends up being effectively 5 to 6 GCDs depending on your Grease Lightning situation. It can help you repair a stumbled rotation, get you up to full Grease Lightning in an opener very rapidly by spamming Oppo Oppo, or unloading a pile of alternating Dragon Kicks and Boot Shines. And that covers everything up to level 50. If you want to see me cover more, you're going to need to vote for me to continue monking the expansion content, or possibly just wait until Shadowbringers, but that's a long ways off. For the time being, I'm just going to stop talking and let you watch Monk in action. During this boss fight, keep an eye on the Grease Lightning gauge at the bottom left of the screen as the fight progresses. At the end of this dungeon, we come to the boss, the Chimera. Chimeras are nothing new in fantasy. Take a bunch of creatures and mash them all together into some bastardization of magic or science. Final Fantasy Chimerae have general default look to them that involves a three-headed creature with a tail that has another head, lions, dragons, rams, and serpents. But it's those middle two we're going to be concerned about most with this fight. All Chimerae in Final Fantasy XIV have access to two abilities, Dragon's Voice and Ram's Voice. Dragon's Voice hits a large donut-shaped area around the enemy, with close proximity to the beast being saved. So you want to get close when you see Dragon's Voice being cast. Inversely, you have Ram's Voice, which hits close, so you need to get away to avoid the attack. This particular Chimera does give you an additional telegraph. You'll see a message saying that its eyes are glowing violet or blue, corresponding with the etherically aspected associated element. Lightning for violet, ice for blue. Dragon's Voice is lightning element, and Ram's Voice is ice. Another trick up this Chimera's sleeve is to target one other player with a ball of lightning that slowly tracks them and then explodes after a few seconds. Ram's Voice and Dragon's Voice will generally have no telegraph, so this boss fight is teaching you to pay attention to when the enemy is charging an attack. A lot of savage and higher difficulty content will involve paying attention to the cast bar and reacting accordingly. And that'll do it for this video. I thank you very much for watching. Please feel free to check out the link to the full LP in the description below. And may you ever walk in the light of the crystal.